Okay, greetings and welcome to the third webcast in our msdynamicsworld.com BI and reporting series. I'm Jason Gumpert from msdynamicsworld.com, and I am very happy to have you all here with us today. For this great event, we have a really tremendous panel of Dynamics ERP experts here to discuss financial reporting in various aspects, and we'll be covering a really nice range of topics in the next hour. We do invite you to provide your feedback, ask your questions today. We're going to try to keep this as flexible as we can, and there are a couple ways for you to ask your questions. First, you can use the Q&A tab that you see in the webcast session here over on the right side, and we will get to as many of those questions as we can. I know the panel is really interested to answer your questions. And second, feel free to tweet your thoughts and tweet your questions. We're using the hashtag MSDWBI to kind of follow those and keep the conversation going. We will have the panel answer as many questions as we possibly can in the next hour, and thanks again for attending. So let me just start by introducing the folks on the phone here and make sure that none of them are on mute. So we have, like I said, some really great folks. First is Belinda Allen, founder of Smith & Allen Consulting. We also have Gloria Braunschweig of Computeration, also the founder there, Greg Kopp from Archer Point, and Carrie Roswold, who from the corporate controller at Augsburg Fortress Publishers and a NAVUG committee member. So welcome to all of you. Maybe we'll go around and let each of you kind of introduce yourselves, starting with Belinda.
Oh, thank you, Jason. My name is Belinda Allen, and as Jason mentioned, I am one of the co-founders of Smith & Allen Consulting in New York City. We've been working with the Great Plains GP product, whichever you want to call it, 21 years, last January. And I'm probably more known for my blog, which contains a lot of videos, Belinda the GP CSI. So I've kind of inherited that nickname by being able to figure out usually what clients have done wrong to create a particular scenario that we call a mess. So.
All right, welcome, Belinda. And Gloria, welcome to you.
Thank you, Jason. Computeration has been a Great Plains and then Microsoft Dynamics GP partner since 1990, so going on 23 years. Our specialization is in wholesale distribution, the supply chain. We also have an excellent reputation for integration and have integrated some extremely large databases into and out of Dynamics GP. And thank you for having me this morning.
Great, thanks for being here. Next is Greg Kopp.
Great, thanks, Jason. So yes, my name is Greg Kopp, and we are a Microsoft Dynamics NAV partner.
Excellent, and we are also happy to welcome Carrie Roswold.
Thanks for having me today. I'm the corporate controller at Augsburg Fortress Publishers, and we are a Microsoft Dynamics NAV customer. I've used the product since 2004 and used the native account schedules, which is the financial reporting thing that NAV uses for all of our financial statements. And we recently participated in the Microsoft TAP beta for Management Reporter. So I'm here to talk to people about that today.
And we're definitely interested to hear what you have to say about that. So thanks for joining today. So we had three main topics that we wanted to cover today, and we were going to leave it pretty open-ended on each one. But I think each one's really useful, and different members of our panel will really have something to add on each one. The place we were going to start was going to be on the topic of regulation and as it relates to financial reporting. And one of the things that we've touched on in recent times is IFRS and IFRS requirements, and we happen to have one of the people who's really been paying close attention to that and really knows their stuff on IFRS here, and that's Gloria. So Gloria, maybe we want to start with maybe a brief overview for those who aren't familiar with IFRS, and we could even put up a poll here to ask people they're thinking about it. But Gloria, maybe you could tell people a little bit more about what they should know about IFRS requirements.
Well, IFRS is an interesting topic, a bit of a conflict even in its name, because there truly are no international financial reporting standards. There are groups of companies who have what they are terming IFRS standards, and certainly the international boards are attempting to equalize that around the world. The impact, of course, on economies is huge, and there are many nations, probably led by the USA, who are resisting the IFRS, the financial reporting standards, so that they are exactly the same around the world. So there's quite a bit of controversy with it. There is a great deal of pullback. Interestingly, in the United States, there are quite a number of companies already reporting with what are termed IFRS, the financial reporting standards essentially of the country of ownership of the company. So, for example, one of our largest customers is owned by a Canadian partnership. So they've been using IFRS, Canadian IFRS standards to report back to Canada for quite some time. But the U.S. is holding back still. The SEC is evaluating it very heavily, though, and trying to push forward with a great deal of controversy, even within the SEC and the various financial reporting boards. So it's a matter of where the ownership of the corporation is held, whether IFRS is in use.
And we just, I just put a little poll up there, and the results that came back about has your company done any IFRS preparation or planning. The results are that most people are saying no, or they're not sure, and really only a few seem to be aware or in the process of dealing with it. Is that surprising to you or to anyone else on the panel?
No, that's what we're seeing also. A very small percentage of companies, those reporting to Canada, those owned by European companies with different standards than the United States, companies with Japanese ownership, for instance. Those are certainly the three dominant ones in the United States. And they are reporting back to their parent companies, so frequently preparing two sets of financials. And here in the United...
Go ahead. Sorry, Gloria.
Oh, go ahead. That's fine.
I was just going to say, here in New York, I see quite a bit of my clients that have offices in different countries. They're paying more attention to IFRS or IFRS reporting, but the bulk of them are not. If they're solely in the U.S., then most of them aren't really, unless they're CPA, they're not even really sure what it is. But more and more that have multiple locations, I am seeing them start to sit up and pay closer attention to it.
Yes, that would be typical. The companies that have to do either tax or financial reporting outside the United States, those are the ones right now, and have been for quite a number of years, actually, using IFRS standards.
And this is a great opportunity, if you're in the audience and you have questions about it, to really start to find out a little bit more.
Okay.
Well, we can. The other main topic in the regulatory area that we did want to touch on was 2012 1099 requirements, at least in the U.S. But we are also open to other kind of regulatory things. Our team here does see as well some international of the international topics from various countries. So, Gloria, what were your thoughts on 1099 requirements that have recently come out?
Well, the 1099 requirements, that law was actually passed a number of years ago and was supposed to have gone into effect when it was initially passed for 2011. Congress pushed back on the IRS and Social Security, and the requirements went into place for 2012. So basically, at the end of 2012, when you do your reporting out of your ERP system on 1099s, you're now required to submit a 1099 despite the type of entity that you have been paying. So corporations are no longer exempt, and that 1099 reporting has to be submitted according to pretty much the standard rules that are in effect for 1099s now, where you submit them to your vendors by January 31 and file it with the government by the end of February. The one interesting covenant deals with services and charges that you run to a credit card, and therefore you report your payments to the credit card. They must report to the vendors which are being paid.
So, one question I would have for you, or for maybe Belinda or Greg as service providers, is what your customers are, how they are reacting to this at this point. Are they seeing? Is this going to be a major impact on the way they manage their their ERP systems at this point, and a real change to the process?
I'll give anybody else a chance.
Well, I was going to, Gloria, I was going to ask you, from as partner to partner, what kind of tools are you using to help your clients update their vendor list? Are you just having them do it manually to turn these vendors into 1099 vendors, if they're a corporation, for example?
In the Dynamics GP product, if the client, and most are, if they're using vendor classes, they can roll the 1099 settings down from there, and we can use an update tool to pull the tax number in. By far, though, that's the tip of the iceberg and the very top tip. The biggest issue is they have to obtain those numbers from their vendors to start out with. So we're already, and have been for about a year, working with our clients, getting them to poll their vendors to get tax registration information and correct addresses, hopefully putting in processes that they're asking for that information before they pay them the first check. And it's certainly it's good leverage to say, hey, if you want to get paid, send me this information. So the process is pretty intense to get that information accurately up front.
Gloria, you raised some really good points about the 1099 requirements, but I do want to ask a question. We followed this quite closely with our company as we prepared to comply with these requirements back in 2011, and of course we tried to be proactive in making sure we were requesting 1099s for all vendors before they were set up. But I thought that there was a repeal of the particular 2012 requirements that's currently in place right now. Is that no longer correct?
I thought it was the repeal of the reporting for 2011. I believe it is in place for 2012 and essentially starts January, February of 2013.
I would certainly encourage people to check those out because I'm not entirely sure that that's correct, but I'll tell you what my feeling is as a financial professional. This has been on the table for quite a while, and it's gotten very close to being in place. So regardless of whether there's a temporary repeal in place now, this is something that probably will become a reality for people regardless of when the actual deadline is. So the point is well taken that you make, that people really do need to prepare for this, ask for the correct information up front, and really be retaining those records in a proper way in order to be able to report on that later, whether it's the end of this year or whether it'll be another timeline.
And thanks to George in the audience who actually just sent a link on the repeal of expanded 1099 requirements. There was also a question on which payments, and I mean, I don't know, to the panel, are you able to see the questions coming in, just as a point of information here?
Yes.
Yes.
And
yes.
So the question of would inventory purchases be included in that, or would it be only for specified payments?
I'm sorry, was that?
Yeah, he's wanting to know if it's just for services or is it for all kinds of payments like inventory as well?
Mm-hmm.
There are some slight changes, so it's primarily for services, but I believe that the law over the years is going to move into a full reporting. If you go outside the U.S. and look at countries like Canada and Australia, the laws that are going into effect in those countries and that have been in effect for a number of years are starting to treat payments to vendors of all kinds almost like you're paying employees. In that other countries are doing withholding, tax withholding, so the governments are stepping up and trying to get the taxes in advance instead of waiting essentially for the tax returns to be filed. So the tax law, it's my belief, is going to morph over the years into a full advance reporting system. It'll be an interesting process to watch because the bureaucratic overload in monitoring that is going to be pretty intense. So right now...
And I'll agree with you there that that's really the issue on the table, and that why that repeal has been bounced around a number of different iterations already, that business owners have revolted and said, my gosh, we're not sure if we can handle the administrative burden of gathering these things. And then the other point is that they really haven't been able to agree on exactly who it should be. Should it be inventory? Should it be services? I'm looking at a page on IRS.gov right now linking the different payments for corporations, payments made in the course of a trade or business, which is very general and which was the original definition that came out of the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act of 2010, and then some of the other things related to the Small Business Jobs Act of 2010 also relating to rental property. So I think that's part of the controversy with this particular regulation and why it's gone back and forth. Is that different requirements for some of those different acts have asked for different levels of reporting, and that hasn't been solidified yet.
Right, right.
All right. Well, we can certainly come back to this, but we have a couple of other main topics on the table I thought we'd maybe start touching on here. Again, definitely keep your questions coming in. We definitely appreciate them. But why don't we move on to another topic that I know had a lot of interest from our panelists and what they're seeing so far, and that's FRX management reporter migrations, and it's something that is going to be really touching all the Dynamics ERP products. I wanted to throw up a quick poll here while we got this conversation going, really about, are you planning to move to Management Reporter 2012, and we'd love to get your input on that just to get a gauge of what folks in the audience are thinking about right now. One of the reasons I'm really glad to have Carrie here is because she and her organization, Augsburg Fortress, were members of the TAP program for Management Reporter 2012, so she has a lot of experience, probably a lot more than most anyone else in the Dynamics NAV customer base with Management Report 2012. And I'd just like to ask you, Carrie, what's your experience been so far, and what have you been learning?
Jason, you give me a lot of credit there. We've actually learned a whole ton, though. We were invited to join the TAP program because our company has been pretty deeply involved in some of the within the software programs for financial reporting, we actually use account schedules, and we had a license for FRX, and we never used FRX. And Microsoft approached us because they wanted to see what it was like for somebody who had never used FRX to use the new product with Management Reporter. So that was a great opportunity for them to work with somebody who understood financial reporting but didn't have any preconceived notions about FRX and see what it would be like for new adoption. And I'll tell you that I'll touch on just a few things about converting from one reporting system to another, and then I'll just talk about some specific things with Management Reporter that we observed, and I'll talk about both the good and the bad. With changing from one reporting system to any other reporting system, certainly my first piece of advice is absolutely know what you want to create. And that answer is not necessarily, well, we want to create all the reports we had before. This is your golden opportunity to be able to say, this is what we really want to report on, and this is what we really want to see. And just because we had 50 historical reports that we produced every month before doesn't mean that that's what we should really be looking at as an organization. So certainly as a strategic type of decision, take a look at those things that you really want, and are they in the form that you want to see them. And then the second thing is if you're moving from one to another, and with the move to Management Reporter, for most people what they're doing is they're moving from FRX into Management Reporter, where they're converting existing data, is go in there and clean that data up. So there's lots of opportunities for that with naming conventions and just how things are organized to clean that stuff up before, and put some effort into that because it'll save you a lot of time later. So those are really the two pieces that I would advise people to really think about, and that's what you can think about even before you make the decision and set a timeline to make this change. From my perspective, as we went through the program, I'll tell you that there were three big things that we really liked about Management Reporter. The first thing is that putting Management Reporter into place with us would save us a huge amount of efficiency in our financial reporting. We like the financial reporting that we have out of NAV. It's accurate, and I think it's easy to design and change, but it's not the most efficient tool that we have as far as actual production of detailed reporting. And that can sometimes get frustrating where you get this great data and then it's like, okay, now we're going to grind down to a very slow pace to get this out to everybody. So there are a couple of different things that Management Reporter provided that really facilitated efficiency in how we produce our financial reports. One of those is their reporting trees. And I'll give you an example of one report that I love, but that I don't produce very frequently because it's so time intensive to produce. I have a gross margin report where I look at all of my product group categories, which are groups of the things that we sell, and I want to see exactly what's going on with the gross margin for those groups in some total and individually. And that report is about 60 different tabs of information, and with what we have to use in NAV right now, it takes a couple of hours of clicking the mouse in order to produce that report. With Management Reporter, we're able to produce that report in a way where we set it up once, and we set it up so that it generates automatically. We let it run, and we have that information. We used to run this report only quarterly because we didn't have time to run it every month. We would be able to run this on a monthly basis using Management Reporter because of that change in efficiency. The additional layers and additional features that Management Reporter gained as far as efficiency beyond the trees is they've got quite a bit of security available so that we have a large number of choices on how we can set up our security, on how those things are published, and how people view them once they're published. And then they have a really easy and user-friendly setup to be able to, when you publish those with that security, to put it out into SharePoint, which is something that we already used in order to distribute those things to our internal customers, but we did it manually. So those were some really big wins for our organization in being able to say, okay, this is something that would be possible for us to do. The other thing that I thought was a big gain was the ability to put comments and to have versioning in your financial reporting. When I produce a first draft of our financials, we put a first draft out there. My CFO and I coordinate on, what we're seeing, what we want to talk about. Do we have an answer to this variance? Would I like to look at this one? And we go back and forth, and we scratch things on Post-it notes and on the draft of the financials and an email. The tool that they have that's available to put comments on your financials keeps all of that right there. We can pass that draft back and forth, so that cuts down on the number of meetings that we have related to this. And I thought, again, great efficiency gain, but also a great way to document your work as you go through the year. My auditors always want to know, what have you kept in your notes? How much review have you done throughout the year of your financial statements? And this would be an easy way to document that within my software in a way where I can replicate that work paper information, without having a stack of Post-its and emails to gather together. And then the third thing that I thought was really quite amazing is, and this may sound silly for some of the other folks who have different reporting for their ERPs, but I can put general ledger totaling in the columns instead of just in the rows. It's a simple thing, but suddenly the flexibility that I have and some of the workarounds that I was using with the within NAV software goes away, and I've gained a ton more flexibility with the reporting that I have. I'm going to throw one more thing out there that I've heard from other folks, specifically the Great Plains folks, that they love about Management Reporter is that there's a feature in there where they can find missing GL accounts. And maybe one of the other panelists might jump in and talk about that. I don't add a whole lot of accounts to my company throughout the year, so it's not useful to me, but I think that out of the other users that I've talked to, that they said that was absolutely an invaluable feature that came through with Management Reporter. So let's talk about some of the negatives, because there's obviously a whole pile of positives, fantastic, but with any reporting package, there's always something that you don't like too, right? The main thing that I don't like about Management Reporter is it only refers back to the general ledger. It doesn't go into sales reporting. It doesn't go into purchasing reporting. So it's only going to the same level as what I had with financial reporting. And of course, we talked with the folks at Microsoft about this. We said, why? Why can't we have more? Because, of course, we always want more with financial reporting. And they said, well, Carrie, we got to start somewhere. And I think they're absolutely right, and that's a great decision. They're going really deep with the financial reporting to make sure that they've produced a quality product to be able to report on financial reporting. As a customer, I have no idea what their plans are on what they're going to expand on, but I think that they have done a good job in that area. And of course, I would like more, but we have to get started somewhere. The other question that I've had or concern, and this comes up throughout the community as a whole, is performance. Does it run slow? Does it take longer to run your reports than it does for you to run them manually? That's a really subjective question in my world, because think of the example that I gave you of the gross margin report. I could only run that report quarterly because it was so inefficient for me to be able to sit there and pay an employee to sit there and click a mouse button for 2 hours in order to run those reports. Now I can get that report monthly because I have the scheduling features through Management Reporter. So are there trade-offs? Yes. Did we see some performance problems? Yes. And as we worked through the beta program, did Microsoft create improvements to those performance problems? Absolutely. My company has a gigantic database, over 1 terabyte in size, and we use over 9 dimensions. They worked through quite a few optimization steps, and we saw leaps and bounds. And mind you, we were in a beta program. So I think that they're going to be able to tackle that problem. And will it be lightning fast and instant for every single report? Absolutely not. But I challenge you to find a reporting package that has that in place now. So that's my points about Management Reporter.
Hey, Carrie, this is Greg. I think a couple things that you might speak to, because I know some interesting questions came up, especially around the NAV community and Management Reporter. So my understanding, and I'd love to get other people's comments, is that for GP and AX, Management Reporter is the financial reporting strategy. Obviously, for GP companies out there that are running FRX, they will be needing to migrate at some point post-2012 to Management Reporter, because I guess 2012 is end of life for FRX. However, for NAV customers, the only customers that will be able to use Management Reporter have to have already had FRX in their license.
Yep.
And I think that's something you came across.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct about that. And I'm not quite sure where they're going with their reporting strategy. If I'm a customer, I can say that because I don't know. But I have asked a lot of questions about that within the Microsoft community, within the Management Reporter group. And the only clear answer that I have is exactly what you stated, that Management Reporter is going to be available to folks in the NAV community who have FRX already. So, and I mentioned at the beginning that we had FRX but never used it. So I think that that's part of why we were chosen, because we had that licensing. It's an interesting strategy that I don't really understand, because my general impression is that not a lot of people within the NAV community were using FRX to begin with. It'll be very interesting to see what happens in the future with this. I'm glad to see that the product did launch with the release for NAV, because I think it's a strong product. And my hope as a customer who's seen the product and who's seen the positives that come along with it is that it will become available for more than just the NAV customers who have FRX.
Great.
A couple things to note too. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have something else to ask or say, Greg?
No, that was it.
A couple things as you're considering the move to Management Reporter that you really need to take into consideration. First and foremost is your network has to be a domain. You cannot be on a work group. And that's very important. A lot of smaller organizations are not on a domain, and Management Reporter will not install if you do not have a domain. So you need to keep that in mind. Secondly, if your operating system is 64-bit, FRX is not supported on 64-bit. Personally, I know it works, but it's not supported. So if you run into any problems, the first thing that Microsoft will tell you is that you need to upgrade to Management Reporter. Now, if you have GP specifically and you're using analytical accounting, and you have a 64-bit operating system, it will not work at all. So those are a couple things from the GP side that you really need to take into consideration as you're talking about making the move.
And I think, Carrie, even being a partner, I don't know that I can articulate Microsoft strategy for anyone else, but I can talk about what I've heard. And I think the challenge around NAV, which is different from AX and GP, I mean, obviously GP has been, I mean, the financial reporting solution has been FRX, and there's a clear migration path to Management Reporter. For AX, clearly they don't have out of the box a solution, and so obviously Management Reporter is Microsoft's strategy there. I think the challenge with NAV has been, to your point, there is a reporting solution in the box itself, right? So I think the challenge is how do they combine that strategy with an external reporting strategy, and you know, I think that's the challenge you're trying to wrestle with. I don't know that they've come up with the right solution to that, but I think that's the challenge.
Great, and I think that something that you alluded to but maybe didn't fully articulate is the idea that NAV doesn't seem to have a very clear reporting path. We've got lots of different choices, just like everybody has different choices, but yeah, they had the release of the JET reports last year, and they've certainly promoted the use of account schedules and analysis by dimensions internally quite a bit, but I don't think that their path has been as clear as some of the other ERP products.
I would agree. I think that's particularly challenging around BI. Well, although clearly Management Reporter is not a BI solution, I think that's another dimension or element that for all of the products makes it particularly challenging, because Microsoft's stated strategy is that as a vendor opportunity for BI. So, you know, as you begin to look at the overlap between financial reporting, BI, you know, to your point, we want a lot more in the solution where we can bring in sales, inventory, elements from our vendors. I think that's where we're going to continue to see some confusion around how does this work between Microsoft's solution and strategy versus where do the vendors come in. And I'll admit, even from a partner perspective, I have not seen a single vendor kind of be the clear winner there. So obviously, you know, we'll be careful not to promote any particular BI vendor, but I think that even makes it more challenging.
Absolutely.
And Greg, how is your firm, and I can ask for anyone else on the panel, you know, learning to sort of answer that question for clients, because certainly they must be looking to you for that guidance. What do you? Yeah.
Well, they do, Jason, and I'll be completely honest about our strategy there. We've been burned enough times making what we thought were great recommendations to clients, and then once they got into it, going, wow, boy, who thought this was a great idea? What we've done more and more is we'll try to bring 2 or 3 different solutions to the table for our clients, and say and then also we leverage the user groups heavily. You know, Carrie, obviously, we will try to connect people with Carrie if they want to talk about Management Reporter. If somebody's wanting to evaluate any of the other number of BI vendors, we'll try to make sure that we get 2 or 3 products in front of a customer. We connect them with people in the community we know and trust who've implemented it. And then we'll really try to leverage the network to help them make a better decision. And that, to tell you the truth, has worked better than us trying to promote any particular vendor.
Just interested when you mentioned...
Jason, Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jason.
Oh, I just had a follow-up question for Greg, just related to the topic of, you know, recommending someone to actually do the implementation. Are there a good number of sort of specialists in BI in the partner channel, or as consultants who kind of come in to really just focus on that for clients and help make the final decision there, would you say?
Well, I think that's a little bit challenging. There are a number of people in the community at large that focus on BI, but it's typically product specific, right?
Oh, okay.
It's kind of hard to, or I say hard, maybe it's just because I haven't seen too many people who are great BI generalists. You know, typically they're coming in once you've selected a particular product. There are a number of people that you can call upon, including typically the vendors themselves, to come in and help with that implementation. So, does that answer the question?
Yeah. Yeah, thanks.
I just want to build on one thing that Greg had said that I kind of loved. You know, he said that they don't have a single thing that they recommend. I'll tell you from a customer standpoint, I don't have a single thing that I use for all of my reporting needs, and that's purposeful. You know, there are different things that work for different types of reporting. So when I talk about my base financial reporting, I'm going to keep using account schedules for my base financial reporting because it's not broken. It's working just great. They're set up. It's nothing that I need to change, and that's something that works great. But when I talk about some of those more complicated reports where it's inefficient for me to use account schedules, of course I'll use Management Reporter for that. And there are other things where I need to get information out of my sales module where I can't reach those using either Management Reporter or account schedules. I use FRX reporting for that with SQL. So as a customer, part of my strategy is to find the right solution to get the different types of reporting I need, and there's no single package that solves that for me.
Over
I think
years,
Carrie, go ahead.
Over the years, the Microsoft products, and that's part of the beauty of the channel that we're in, is that whatever tool you're comfortable with, you have a history with, you can use with the Microsoft SQL databases. So especially with the GP product, if you want to use Access, you can use Access. Excel is out there with quite a number of BI third-party tools, and SSRS, and even the report builder, which is, you know, a good move towards making SSRS available to what I would call the non-technical user. Then you get down to products like SmartList, which, you know, we call that the novice report writer in GP because anybody can learn that and use it. So you've got a lot of tools out there to choose from, and it's always been a matter of what you're comfortable with.
Yeah,
right,
I would just add I would just add, I think, thank you so much. We, as a community, we're getting better, and I think there's still even opportunity to improve. I love what I see happening in NAVUG, AXUG, GPUG, and I would tell you more and more, even as a partner, we try to direct people to the community because you get, you know, there's always the concern I think end user companies have as they're talking to the partner, are you just trying to sell me something? And so more and more, and I think Carrie's a great example of that. I don't even have any idea, Carrie, how many calls you field around financial reporting, and now I'm sure it's going to be managed reporter. But,
yes.
You know, it's leveraging the asset we have within a larger community. We discovered years ago that when customers would come to us asking questions, even though we have a fairly large install base, that's still limited to just the companies we've worked with, and really that is somewhat limiting. So by working through the communities and connecting people together, I would just encourage everyone on the call, if you're not a member yet of the various users groups with dynamic communities, you absolutely should be. I don't know of any better value out there.
And
sorry, that was my shameless plug for the dynamic communities.
Not so shameless. Yeah, the choice of which report writer to use is always an incredibly difficult one to use. And even in this case of, I see we changed the topic there, but from FRX to management reporter versus something else, or Excel versus something that's in the out of the box, and it's always going to rely on what report you want to see and who the individual that's going to be creating the report is. And it's going to vary. There's not going to be one report writer that every company builds. And Gloria's absolutely right. It depends also on your comfort level a great deal. And I think that's one reason why Microsoft's making a push to get more and more data into Excel, because even though most people only use about 10% of its functionality, they still are very comfortable with Excel. And so once something's in Excel, they feel like, finally I can breathe. If they're trying to build something in the Great Plains report writer, that was very cool and neat when it first came out, but it's not for the average user. So and SmartList is, requires work being done over and over. So, but it all depends upon what you want, who's getting the data and what you want to see, and those two things are going to determine which avenue is the best approach. And as customers and users of all of the products, you can't make the assumption that one report writer is going to fit the bill for everything. You're going to have to go in knowing that Microsoft has that stack technology, and that includes report writing as well. So, yep. I guess we're on to the next topic.
Jason, Jason, I see a question in the queue about Atlas. I don't have any experience, but I see some people from FullScope, MCA Connect, Columbus. Are they able to answer through chat or Q&A? I'm sure a number of them would have some insight into how Atlas compares.
I don't think that the other attendees can sort of publicly answer on the platform here.
But they can pop it in as a question, right?
Yeah, they could certainly put in enter in a chat if someone wanted to give feedback, on that particular question there. And, I think that does kind of filter into this larger topic of choosing a report something to generate reports, whether it's going with an Excel solution or going with something else. And I did want to actually pop up a little poll to sort of lead into that in the last segment here that we have. So let me just bring that up. And the question is really, are you using Excel for your reporting right now, yes or no? And you know, if no, maybe you want to give it a little chat of what you're doing instead. Are you using third-party tools? Are you just kind of way behind and not doing enough at all? Feel free to enter your opinions in there too. So I mean, maybe this would be a good time to talk a little bit more about Excel itself, and when you make a choice to, let's say, go with Excel because it is such a popular tool. Belinda, this is something I know you talk a lot about, when to embrace Excel reports, and maybe when you should really be looking for other solutions.
Well, again, it falls back to my last statement. It depends what you're wanting to see and who's going to be generating the report. I tend to slant toward Excel more, only because users who are creating the reports have this comfort level. And even if you introduce some complexity to it, minor complexity, such as adding the Power Pivot add-in for Excel 2010, there's still a comfort level that people feel around working in it. So I do tend to lead to Excel more, but we do a lot from the, in a lot of the other tools as well. So it really depends on what needs to be seen and how you can get the data. Now, one of the things that we do when we do work with Excel is we do encourage people to either use the Excel refreshable reports, or in the case of a lot of my clients, they have so much data that even with Excel 2010 having over 1 million rows, there's still not enough room, there's not enough rows to accommodate all their data. So we do provide them with scripts that they can put in, SQL views particularly, that they can put in, and then we show them how to access and create their own ODC or Office data connection files. And it's a fairly complicated issue which to use when. And another option that people have is a Smart List report builder in the case of GP, and where they can create their own Excel reports as well, and then they can go ahead at that point and reduce some of the data. So again, I see somebody answered yes to all of the above. That's me as well on the poll question. But it really depends upon what you're wanting to see and what you're not wanting to see. I just saw you had, I guess you're turning it, a copy of a dashboard we made, and we actually made it off of pure GP general ledger data. There it is. Just kind of tilt your head to the side and you can see it. And at the, oh, there you go. Thank you, Jason. At the top, you're seeing cash balances as of now, and down below are 2 different sales reports based on the slicers you see. And this all came out of GP using Power Pivot, so it doesn't matter how much data you have. And it's a simple tool. And the interesting thing about this is the second that one of our consultants, Kuldeep, saw it, he immediately said, hey, so-and-so needs this instantly, so he's working on implementing that now. And here, I'll do my little shameless plug, Gregory. At the Spring Decisions, I will show you exactly how to create this very digital dashboard. But there's so many different sources out there, including SSRS, if you want to use the business analyzer tool as well in GP, or just access other applications as well. There's just so much power. But the best thing is the very first thing that Carrie said, which I don't know if anyone could see, but I put the little icon that I was applauding her, is you need to write out what you want to see, and you need to diagram it out. And then once you know what the report looks like, and you know who's going to get it, and you know who's going to create it, then the tools should become pretty self-evident. Just make sure that you're always choosing a tool that somebody around you can support. I don't know if Gloria or Gregory.
That's one of the principles of application design right there. Is if you have a need, sort of spec it out to some degree so that you can then choose a tool that will meet those needs, whether it's an SSRS report, something you can export or integrate through Excel, or something you need to get a more specialized tool for?
Yeah, we're finding even a lot of people who are using the Business Analyzer or wanting to use it or trying to get into it a little bit more. When they get down to it, they're finding that a lot of times what they're wanting is just something that's straight out of Excel, or in some cases we're just building a report directly from SSRS, the SQL Server reporting services, and that comes with your SQL Server. So if you have the SQL Server Enterprise. So it makes your life a little bit, whatever's going to make your job easier. You have to think selfish. I always tell all of my customers, be selfish about what's going to make your personal job easier. If your personal job's easier, you're going to do it better, and you're going to do it faster, and you're going to be happier doing it, and your company's going to prosper.
Good point, Belinda, too, about, good point about Power Pivot and who maintains things. I know that we love Power Pivot, and my accounting staff can use that tool, hook up to our database, dump it into a pivot table, apply slicers, and we're having all kinds of fun with data. And that's great, especially if we don't have the one person in our organization available to run an SSRS report for us. That's outside of our skill set in the accounting team. And we get great results from it, but if you don't have somebody on your staff like that, you've got to use another tool like that. Part of that equation, too, is keeping up your skills. So, if we didn't have that ability to use Power Pivot, and we didn't have that person who knew how to use SQL in our organization, how would we accommodate for that? So part of how we keep up our skills organizationally is we make sure that we know how to use some of these new tools that are available, especially the add-on type tools from Excel that are free for us, so that we keep ourselves flexible with our skills.
And that's true, Carrie. Keeping up your skills is incredibly important. But something you should also consider is most of the time the reports that you're going to want to obtain data from, they're going to be the same kinds of data over and over. They may, for example, you may want to look at general ledger data in terms of generic general ledger data and sales, or general ledger data and payables, and so forth. And they're always going to be along the same line. You may want to look at sales order information or project information. And to make it easier for you, the user, what you should do is take advantage of your partner, your Microsoft partner. Because if you can spell out, these are the broad kinds of data that I'm interested in, or here are all the windows in my application, whether it's NAV, SL, GP, AX. These are the windows of data that I want to get information in, and I want to be able to get to them. Your partner can create these SQL views for you and help grant the access so that you can use very generic tools that you're comfortable with, like Excel and Power Pivot, without having to know what table, that in the case of GP, GL00100 is the account master, and, the specific field names. They can make you a view that is very simple, that acts and looks like, in the case of GP, Smart List, so that everything has very simple names to them, and they're logical to you, and then you could use the tools that you're comfortable with, and then it gives you more control over your system. And then you could spend a lot of your time in sharpening your skills and keeping up on what you can get that will benefit you procedure-wise from your ERP system, and then how do you use the tools like Excel and Power Pivot better?
Excellent. Yeah, and if
Jason, go ahead, Carrie, sir.
Yeah, that's okay. And I agree that putting together those kinds of sets of information that you can replicate over and over again and just find different ways of looking at it is exactly what you need to do.
Hey, Jason, I thought I saw a few come in on the Q&A that I don't know that I'm the best person to answer it, but I can hit a couple things. I noticed the question from Eric about data migration, Rapid Start, Excel Services, Atlas. What I do know is Rapid Start, for those who aren't familiar with it, is Microsoft's tool about being able to kind of load data, primarily in a new system, I think is what they're thinking around Rapid Start. The only challenge, if you think about that, for AX, I believe GP, they're also offering it. I know at least on the AX side, data validation isn't something that is necessarily part of the Rapid Start import. So if you're using that for any type of data migration, something you want to consider. My understanding with AX 2012 is a number of the features that people have historically used Atlas for. Microsoft has incorporated in 2012. Now obviously I think Atlas continues to build that and improve their products. But I would just, if you're running 2012, you probably want to make the evaluation of what it is you want to do with Atlas versus what Microsoft has now included out of the box. And I think the only other question I saw come across on the Q&A was around why is U.S. pushing back on IFRS. And I think a lot of it comes down to between GAAP and IFRS. It's the basic difference between principles-based and rules-based. And GAAP is very much rules-based. So kind of if you think about how the U.S. reporting is geared, especially for SEC reporting, it's all about specific rules. And if you move to a principles-based methodology versus rules-based, how can we guarantee that everybody is doing things the same way, right? Just thought before we hit the top of the hour, I want to make sure we got to everybody's questions.
And there is a comment in chat from Darren Pitcher, too, about who becomes responsible for maintaining the reports, accounting staff or IT staff. And that's a really good question that we get asked quite a bit. If you're building your own, if you're doing as one of the options I suggested that you have views and you let people build their own Excel reports, then I would think the individuals would need to be responsible. If your partner is building reports for you, then someone needs to be deemed the one responsible. In my customers, it varies between the IT staff and the accounting department. Usually it is an individual who steps forward to be the report specialist from the accounting staff, but I have other companies that do just the same thing with the IT staff. So it really depends who's willing to be the one to keep sharpening their report saw. Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Belinda, that was Belinda, right?
That was Belinda, yes.
Sorry. Just want to make sure. Belinda, from a I don't know, from a best practices or even a compliance standpoint, how important is it to have that defined about who has the reports of record, or who's generating the reports that will be that will really be managed?
I think it's very important. I think there should be some form of documentation of all the reports that get printed, how often they get printed, who creates them, and what they do, where they get distributed and what gets done with them. Because one of the things that Carrie mentioned early on was that a lot of times as people are implementing something new like Management Reporter, they have the tendency to take the 50 reports they had in their old system, whether it be FRX or something else, and they just turn around and recreate them. And then when you get down to it, they say, oh, yeah, we only print these 3. And so the question is, why do we have all these extras? And unfortunately, I know Gloria and Gregory will attest, all too often we're in the middle of a new implementation and they hand us a list of reports and say, we need all these reports, and when you ask the question, who gets them and what do they do with them, a lot of times it's, we file these 3 and then we give this one out. And it's like, well, why do we need to file these 3? We're wasting space, and every inch of space you can save in New York City probably costs you $1,000 a year. And so, why are we doing this? So it is very important to make that determination. Now, a lot of times as people are building reports that they might send out themselves in Excel, usually the individual who created them kind of tends to be the controller of that report, and they don't like to share it with anyone else because everyone I know who creates something in Excel, they think of it like they're an artist and it's their Mona Lisa, and so they don't want anyone touching it for fear that she will no longer be smiling.
Got it. We are at about the top of the hour here. If anyone on the panel had any last comments they want to make, feel free to jump in right now. Otherwise, I do want to say thank you again very much to everyone on the panel as well as to those who attended today. Here's some contact information from the folks on the panel. Again, Belinda, Greg, Gloria, and Carrie, thanks so much for your time today. And we are recording the session, so if you missed any part of it, it will be online in just a couple days. And stay tuned. Look for an upcoming invitation to a session where you'll get a chance to look at some of the third-party apps that are out there from some great BI vendors, and we'll be publicizing that event very shortly. Thanks again for attending, and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.